Today, we're going to be talking about the best heroes to improve your Idle Heroes account. We're not talking about damage dealers. They'll be coming in a later video in this series. Today, I want to talk to you about the support heroes that will improve your team. The reason I'm doing this first is because when we cover damage dealers, you'll realize we use a lot of these heroes over and over again, depending on which hero is your main damage dealer. The only thing that changes is the order that we draw attention to these heroes and build them. Regardless what way you approach this game, building strong supports is crucial to maximizing your progress, which is why I want to focus on these heroes today. We're going to be talking about 5 heroes that are the best supports that I believe will improve your account's progress. And we've selected 5 Transcendence heroes that, regardless who your damage dealer is, will improve your team. So we're going to start with Scarlet Queen Halora. Halora is a very old hero and has stood the test of time. Her abilities are, without doubt, one of the strongest of a support hero, especially in mid-game. I'll immediately say her destiny tree isn't very good compared to others. Her strength lies in her actual raw abilities. So take her active skill. This is going to deal damage and bleed enemies, and then deal some extra damage. That's fine, nothing special about that. The key thing that's important for your team is Abyssal Corruption. This is a skill effect that corrupts enemies and makes them take more critical strike damage whilst dealing less critical strike damage themselves. That simple buff is extremely strong because it's separate from crit damage. It just means if you crit, you're going to do 24% more damage. This also can stack, which is very, very nice. In fact, you'll even see here at Noble, there's a chance to gain an extra layer of Abyssal Corruption off the Sublimation ability in and of itself. The longer the fight goes on, the more you can stack Abyssal Corruption. That means you can deal more and more and more damage. So it can initially boost a strong burst hit, but in longer fights, it can get ridiculous. Another ability she has which supports your team is the Ultimate Queenship. This is just going to give her healing depending on the number of allies that you have alive, but if you sublime it, you start to see some bonuses come through here, mainly at this final level. When it's triggered, it will restore the HP of all allies, because all allies will benefit from Queen's Guard, which is her next ability. So she's got some little passive healing in there too. But this one, Royal Guard, is where we do see some extra potency. She gives all allies Queen's Guard. This increases their all damage dealt by 24%. So not do you just get Abyssal Corruption that's going to boost your damage output, you do get extra damage from having a queen in the fight and giving your damage dealers Queen's Guard. Further to that, you're also going to get bonuses to your all damage reduction, and at this top level, when she counterattacks, which is part of how Queen's Guard works, when Queen gets hit, her guards will fight back. You're also going to steal attack from enemies, which can synergize with heroes that enjoy putting debuffs on the opponents. All in all, Queen is primarily used in the mid-game to get Abyssal Corruption and give you that 24% all damage dealt bonus from Queen's Guard, and that pressure alone does improve the performance of your damage dealer heroes. In fact, having a queen is oftentimes better than building a bad tenant, because the bonuses here are just better for that damage dealer hero than the fixed attack bonus you'd get from the Celestial Island. So Queen is definitely a hero to consider if you're going to get as much damage as possible out of your main damage dealer hero. Next on our list of heroes to draw your attention to is Therapist of Blood Betty. She's a notoriously good crowd control hero, and there's a lot that she brings to the table. However, it's very easy to build a Betty badly. I see a lot of people who still struggle to get good performance out of their Bettys, and it's because they don't know what they're doing. So let me quickly cover to you how Betty works. Let's start with her active skill itself. This is going to deal damage to backline enemies, and afterwards it'll do Hemotherapy. The main point of Hemotherapy is it's going to deal damage to your opponents, and then have a 100% chance to do Blood Binding Twine to the target. It will then find a new target, reduce that percentage chance by 15%, and try and twine them again and deal some more damage. The idea is it's just blasting out a strong chance to twine opponents. This decreasing each time is not necessarily an issue if you can improve the control precision of your Betty. In that sense, you can still end up having an extremely high control chance. Also, if you can improve her control immunity offset, you're also going to improve that control chance as well. The way her core works is basically, if an opponent is twined, you're going to steal their energy. If they're not, there's a chance to twine them again. So basically, the core can make up for her bad control, because obviously it gets worse and worse and worse the more hits you do with chemotherapy, and it can then plug onto the opponents, controlling those that didn't get controlled. It's a 50% chance to twine them. So this core basically makes her active skill almost guaranteed to twine the enemy team. It's extremely useful. Combine that then with this passive here, Superfluous Oblation, and things get really stupid. When Betty has more than 100 energy, it will trigger her active skill. This will not consume any energy and will do 60% of its original damage. We do not care about the damage Betty does. It's all about triggering her active skill, controlling opponents, triggering this core, all outside of speed order. What gets very silly then, with a Betty, is there's two ways to trigger this reliably. The first way is to start off with an energy artifact on your Betty. So let's take something like Elusive Mirror. All heroes start with 50 energy. Elusive Mirror gives us an additional 50. That means we're on 100 energy. The first time Betty gets hit in a fight, her energy will increase, because basic attacks and active skills increase your energy when you are hit by them by 10. If it's a crit, you get 20 energy. Either way, getting hit takes you above 100 and triggers Betty's passive. Also, at the end of rounds, this can feed energy to the team, which means if Betty has 100 energy and that energy takes her above, you will then trigger her passive again, locking enemies down for the whole next round ahead of you. If Elusive Mirror is on your team, on Betty, that's one reliable way to do this, or you can put it on any ally and it will still feed energy to that Betty, because Elusive Mirror feeds energy to the entire team at the end of the round, which means Betty can keep triggering. For this reason, you definitely want Elusive Mirror on your account, either on one of your allies or on Betty if you're relying on her getting hit so that she gains that extra bit of energy and triggers. However, there is another reliable artifact that you can consider if you want deific artifacts. This is Dragon Breeze Scepter. This gives you loads of control precision. It also gives you control immunity offset, which is fantastic. And at the beginning of each battle, the hero has a 50% chance to gain 100 energy. What's important about this is an immediate energy bonus for your Betty in the fight. So it triggers that passive we looked at. It takes her to 150 energy, which means immediately before anything has happened, that Betty will trigger her Scarlet therapy. Which means Betty is going to get you some guaranteed crowd control before enemies have attacked. And this trivializes so many fights in things like Void Vortex and in the Void campaign. Even in Realms Gate Phantom fights, it's extremely good. The point of this is locking down opponents means that your main damage dealer is free to attack those enemies without having to worry about getting attacked back, which gives you lots of opportunities to deal a lot of damage. What also makes Betty extraordinarily strong then is that she's also going to restore energy for every one twined opponent. So she's twining enemies, feeding her energy back into herself, and then Elusive Mirror, if it's on your team, feeds her back up, and she triggers even more active skills to constantly crowd control opponents. And if you do this properly, she can loop crowd control over and over again and just trivialize so many things. That's why we really recommend her to improve the power of your account. There are a few issues though. Some heroes don't enjoy the energy steal that Betty does to opponents, so you got to watch out for that. When she twines opponents, she can steal their energy. That's negatively affecting heroes like Williams, who want enemies to get a lot of energy. So if you are using a Williams, Betty's probably not the best choice for you, but for most other damage dealers, Betty is absolutely fantastic. You just need to make sure you have her core and an Elusive Mirror somewhere on your account, and if you want to maximize her performance, Dragon Breeze Scepter, when it's splendid, is definitely worth considering. If you're subliming a Betty, which is something sometimes people do, you don't have to, by the way, you can keep her at Tree of Origin 1 just to get her core, but if you're maximizing her energy performance, taking her to Tree of Origin 5 and upgrading Superfluous Oblation might be a good idea, because at its full noble level, you gain extra energy when you trigger Scarlet Therapy. You get 30 energy back, so that helps with your energy feed situation. Also, enhancing Doomed Death just once actually improves her energy feed to herself as well. So we like to upgrade this all the way to the end, and this just to maximize that energy feed that she grants to herself. So she's actually quite nice in that she doesn't need a lot of sublimation. Next on our list of heroes to support your team is Doppelganger Natalia. Now this is a very, very complicated hero who has a lot of really, really interesting effects. So bear with me once we try and quickly summarize this so that you guys have a general idea of how she works. First things first is her active skill is going to deal some damage to opponents, and then for every one attribute reduction effect that target has, you'll do some extra damage as well. That's nice. More importantly, she's then going to take a lot of that damage and throw it onto one opponent who has Undying Shadow. And the enemy with Undying Shadow is typically the opponent with the highest attack. After that, she's going to grant Guiding Glow to herself and allies who have Bright Blessing. And Bright Blessing is prioritized onto your highest attack hero, which should be your main damage dealer. Guiding Glow is going to improve your attack, your holy damage, your damage reduction, and your crit damage, which means you can get a lot of enhancements just from a single active skill from a Natalie. But there's more. There's a 100% chance to replicate 2 random attribute reduction effects that she has to enemies with Undying Shadow, which means she can then punish opponents as well. And on top of all of that, just some other bonuses she can throw in. The main one I want to draw your attention to is this one here at the bottom, Excellent Twins. If Natalie or your main damage dealer drops below 50% HP for the first time, she will gain Fluorescent Shield, and they will gain Fluorescent Shield as well. What Fluorescent Shield does is it restores your HP, it gives you a shield, and then it increases your holy damage by 20% for 6 rounds. So you get an emergency heal and defense from the shield, along with a holy damage buff. This is fantastic. This means that your main damage dealer can clutch in, or Natalie can miraculously quickly survive, and then that holy damage buff means that you're able to get an extra bit of damage performance out of your hero as well. Also, when her or the hero with Blight Blessing is under a basic attack or an active skill, Natalie also has the ability to counter, which decreases the enemy's crit, which could give you some more survival. And also, the enemy with Undying Shadow, you can replicate 2 of their reduction effects and put them to enemies on the front line. So you're spreading out lots and lots of debuffs, which is extremely nice. Further to that, all enemies will receive the replicated attribute reduction if you enhance this to Noble, so that's really a nice way to further debuff opponents. And we've got some additional bonuses as well, like granting Fluorescent Shield to self and the ally with Bright Blessing when self HP is below 30% for the first time, which is really nice. That gives you 2 opportunities to emergency heal when you drop below 50 and when you drop below 30. So you can give yourself some additional ways of staying alive thanks to your Natalia. There are lots of cool little bonuses flowing in here as well. You can see we can additionally increase our self-damage reduction and our effect of being healed, which is really nice. So there's loads of bonuses that get thrown in here, and you can reduce the attacker's attack by 6% when self or the target with Bright Blessing gets attacked by an enemy. So that's also really, really useful. If you're going to sublime a Natalie, what you can do is go with 1 upgrade on the active skill, just to maximize the numbers given by Guiding Glow. 1 upgrade on the basic. This is just going to enhance the abilities here, make sure the numbers are really high so that you get better shields and better replications. And then the final 2 passives, I would upgrade all the way if you can, just to maximize the reductions you're doing to opponents and the buffs that you're getting from your emergency protections. Basically, Natalie becomes an emergency heal switch if needed in fights, along with a really great stat booster that's giving you attack, holy damage, damage reduction, and crit damage. So not only does it give you added survival, it gives you added damage as well. And that could make the difference between whether you win or lose a fight, because it can allow your main damage dealer to stay alive and squeeze out 1 more active skill, which could win you a battle. That's especially important in nonsense like Void Campaign, where just living 1 more round can be the difference between winning and losing. Let's talk about Natalie's Destiny Tree. This is the first hero that I've wanted to draw attention to here, but it's for a few reasons. First of all, Natalie consumes 3 layers of her transition power at the end of the round. That's good already. That means it's going to trigger at the end of every single round, which means all the abilities you're about to see will also trigger at the end of every round. That's assuming Natalie gets to attack and give herself layers, but 1 active skill alone is getting you 6 layers. So even if you get CC'd in 1 round, you still should have 3 layers left over to do it again. Either way, what we can do here is we can reduce attack, reduce speed, or reduce armor on opponents. So it synergizes with her own abilities, which allow her to deal more damage the more reductions an opponent has. As well, we can either deal extra damage here, we can steal energy from opponents, or we can even get more damage as well. So you've got the abilities to either hurt opponents with damage or improve your performance by stealing attack. On top of that, you can also give control immunity offset to your ally with the highest attack. Now that's not necessarily very important. Most main damage dealers don't have CC-based effects, but some do, so that could be quite interesting. Also, if you wanted, you can reduce energy from one enemy with the highest attack by 30. That's a nice way of stopping that one problematic hero from hitting you. And you can also remove one random buff from one enemy with the highest attack. So that's pretty good for making them less powerful. However, the last few are where things get really spicy. If you take it to a high enough level, you can increase all allies' energy by 20. That's nice. Or you can give them an extra layer of transition power, which could allow them to do their transition skills more often. Also, at this particular level at Polystar, we gain 50% crit damage. And that's when Natalie really gets silly, because getting a massive bonus to your crit damage means that you don't have to necessarily build crit damage onto your hero for them to perform very well. Things like the crit attack stone are very popular to get your crit damage to 150% on a main damage dealer. You might not need that with this 50% boost, which means you can prioritize stones like holy damage, skill damage, which could see your team getting a lot more performance in the long run. The only issue is this is Polystar, which means you already need a lot of Destiny heroes, but it's worth mentioning because Natalie is one of the unique heroes that gets stronger and stronger the more you invest into her. Now, one final thing worth mentioning is Natalie's core. Sometimes this comes up. Let's say you don't need Betty's core for control, or maybe you don't have Betty yet. Natalie's core can be pretty good. This will debuff the enemy with the highest speed, potentially reducing their control immunity, or their speed, or their energy, which is pretty nice. The most important part of Natalie's effect, though, is that she's going to buff all of your allies with one of the following effects, and the ally with the highest attack will get one extra effect as well. You can either increase your holy damage for 2 rounds, increase your control immunity offset by 5%, which is nice for control heroes, and you can increase your critical damage by 30% for 2 rounds. The fact that you're getting a potential 2 of these on your main damage dealer means you're probably likely to get holy damage and crit damage at the same time, which is a really, really nice boost for this core to give to your damage output. So definitely worth considering if you're trying to get a little bit more punch out of your highest attack hero, and the fact it buffs your whole team as well is extremely useful. Even just that 5% control immunity offset can make a difference on your crowd control heroes as well. So yeah, it's pretty nice. And Renville's right, the debuffs on opponents can make a huge difference too. Just being able to steal a bit of energy from the enemy team, or just a bit of speed, or even just reducing their control immunity and combining that with the control immunity offset you gain, it does actually really help your performance in a lot of fights. So one of the better cores in the game, actually. Definitely don't sleep on this. Next is Lady of Blossom Realm Melissa, a really strong support hero if you know what you're doing. Melissa can get you out of a lot of sticky situations and improve the potency of your team, not just in attack, but also defense. So let's start off with her active. This will deal damage to opponents, but more importantly, it'll reduce their damage reduction by 10% and their control immunity by 10%. That, of course, is better when you sublime it. It goes to 15% for both. Afterward, she'll grant Dream Magic Wings on the ally with the highest speed, Dream Magic Magnification on the ally with the highest attack, and Dream Magic Protection on the ally with the lowest HP. These are each specific effects that will benefit that hero and actually really work to support them depending on their situation. Your highest speed hero will gain control immunity, a little bit of extra speed, and if they're inflicted with control effects, they can remove them and then restore energy. This is very, very nice. Magnification makes your highest attack hero increase their all damage dealt, which is already fantastic. And when you release active skills or basic attacks, you'll deal extra damage equal to 15% of the enemy's max HP. And finally, the protection gives a shield to your lowest HP hero, which is also extremely nice. And when the owner loses the shield for the first time, they get an extra shield equal to 20% of their max HP. So a nice way of keeping your weaker heroes alive. All in all, a very solid support hero, but things get better. Look at Brilliant Boon. When an ally is inflicted with a control effect, so that's any form of crowd control, including doves, If Melissa has 30 or more energy, she will remove that 30 energy from herself and remove the control effect from the ally. Then she'll grant herself 1 layer of Power of Dream. If she has 3 layers of Power of Dream, when she does a basic attack, she will instead do an active skill. That's important because she's draining her own energy to protect you from control. But if she does that enough, she's only going to do basic attacks, right? Because she's not got enough energy in the tank. What's cool then with the Power of Dream is it doesn't matter. You just go ahead and smack with an active skill anyway because of those 3 layers of the Power of Dream. So that's really, really sweet. A very, very nice ability. And when any ally's HP is below 30%, if Melissa has 30 or more energy, she will consume 30 of that energy to give that ally a shield. So rather than giving you emergency protection against control effects, she can also give you emergency shields to try and keep you alive. She's really, really cool. Reactive control immunity is one of the few powerful effects that we have access to in this game to combat doves from heroes like Sherlock. It also works really well in Star Expedition to remove control effects given by the boss. This is very strong and makes Melissa one of my favorite heroes to run as a support hero, because not just are you getting these bonuses specific to your heroes, you're also getting bonuses that keep you safe from crowd control. And to make things even better, if you take a look at Dreamlike Illusion, these are buffs she is giving to herself. And Mirror Magic Wings is the main one I want to draw your attention to. This gives Melissa control immunity by 8% and 8 extra speed. So bear that in mind when you're doing your speed calculations. Melissa's speed is 8 faster than you think. But more importantly, when the owner, which is going to be Melissa here, is inflicted with control effects, she removes 1 of them randomly and then gains 30 energy, which means she energy feeds herself when she gets crowd controlled, which then feeds into Brilliant Boon because she then spends that energy to protect your team. It's very, very cool how those abilities work together. And what you can basically do is combine this stuff with some of her sublimation to make her really strong. The recommended sublimation for her is just 1 upgrade on the active skill, just to improve the numbers here so that the damage reduction is 15% and the control immunity is 15%. But also, if you want to go all the way up passive 2, that's recommended as well, because layers of Power of Dream needed to replace the basic attack with an active skill is -1, which means you only need 2 layers of Power of Dream so that when you do a basic, you end up doing an active instead, which just makes your active skill more consistent. And yes, when the battle starts, you gain these mirror magic abilities, but when you die, Melissa can spend one of these mirror magic abilities to resurrect, which is absolutely nuts. After you've lost 3 of them, though, you can't revive after that point, because you gain what's called fictional magic. You gain 100 energy immediately, increase your energy by 100 at the end of each round. So that's after you've died and come back 3 times. It's pretty cool, but if you die again, that's it, you're out. You're out and you're gone. But the fact that Melissa can die and resurrect and die and resurrect and die and resurrect means that Melissa can trigger a lot of death passive abilities multiple times. So heroes like Asmodel, Aspen, and Vulcan are absolutely fantastic. And the sub improves it too. Let me just double check. Oh yeah, fictional magic's duration gets increased by 1. How long does it last for? Oh, it's for 2 rounds. Right. Yeah, it's for 2 rounds. So it can actually end up being 3 rounds if you improve this. You don't necessarily have to improve this. That's not going to like make a huge difference for her. The main increase is if you want to upgrade passive 2. But Melissa's abilities on its own, really, really strong. You're removing CC, you're debuffing enemies' defenses, you're improving your own ability to deal damage on your hero with the highest attack, and she's also resurrecting. Simply just eating attacks can also be really useful. So like Melissa could take a really strong hit from an opponent, die, resurrect, and it means she can take more hits, which against enemies that only do single target damage, that's actually really important because that can improve your survival in a fight. Melissa is really, really strong, really versatile, and definitely recommended if you're trying to improve the power of your team. So yeah, I really like Melissa, and you definitely should consider her for most accounts. Mainly just because she removes CC, which is extremely useful. Our final hero we're going to cover today is Great Sage Son Wukong. A complicated but very, very potent support hero which will massively improve your account if you know what you're doing with him. The first thing I want to draw your attention to with Wukong is this passive here, Invulnerable Body. If he has more than 50% HP after being healed, he will enter the Immortal Soul state for 5 rounds. If Wukong drops to 50% or less, he will enter the Universe Imitation status. Both of these statuses are going to offer Wukong unique effects that can help your team. But if we skip past what all it does for a moment, let me draw your attention to this last paragraph. When a battle starts, or when Self is in the battle as a substitute, if Wukong has 100 or more energy, he will lose 50% of the current HP that he has and then gain a shield equal to 75%. So already he's just saying, all right, I'm going to halve my HP to get a shield, which is stronger than that HP I've just lost. Amazing for survival. But more importantly, dropping to 50% HP will trigger Universe Imitation straight away. Universe Imitation has some really powerful boosts. First, it increases your attack by 15% and your holy damage by 15%, and you can stack that with up to 3 layers. All allies gain a 20% holy damage bonus. Mwah! That's fantastic. For 2 rounds. Then, to all enemies, inflict 500% Divine Retribution. Alright, a little bit of damage. With 100% chance to inflict Fragile, more on that later. And then a 80% chance to stun for 1 round. That means, at the start of a fight, Wukong can immediately stun opponents, which is super duper powerful. If you choose to upgrade this and take it to its final level, that stun duration is enhanced to 2 rounds. So immediately, if you're building a Wukong, you want to upgrade this passive 2 to Noble Sublimation, because a 2-round stun is obviously way better than a 1-round stun. It gives you 2 rounds of fully stunned opponents to just do what you need to do with your main damage dealer, which has, by the way, gained 20% holy damage from this Universe Imitation ability. On top of that, we said we'd inflict opponents with Fragile, so what does that mean? It means when the target takes basic attack damage or active skill damage, they will take an extra bit of damage equal to 30% of their maxed HP. And then there's an 80% chance for that to restore 10 energy to Great Sage Wukong. So it energy feeds Wukong, which is really, really nice. And then what you'll see here is when enemies Fragile is triggered, it increases all allies' holy damage by 10%. So you're stacking a lot of holy damage buffs onto your team, all thanks to running Wukong. As well, it'll grant a shield if you're in the Immortal Soul status every time as well. So what you're ending up with is a ton of holy damage buffs, a ton of shields to protect you, and stun that immediately comes out and stops the opponents. All you need to do to get this is start with 100 energy on your Wukong, which is super simple to do with any energy artifact. We recommend Elusive Mirror because it does give you a little bit of control immunity offset, which makes that stun more reliable. But it works with Dragon Receptor if that triggers, and it also works just with a Demon Belt, or a Melodic Strings, or anything else like that. So you end up with a Wukong that can be extremely potent. Also, if you're looking to improve your damage output, Wukong has some pretty good firepower coming from his active skill, which makes him fun to use as a damage dealer early on. But as you progress into the game, this is mainly just here to give shields to your team. And as well, Renville is right. Unlike Betty, to get this reliable crowd control, you don't need to use Wukong's core. In fact, his core's not that very good. It's just giving control immunity to your team and a little bit of all damage dealt, which, yeah, it's not a lot really. So I personally prefer just to use Wukong purely as a stun bot, a shield giver, and mainly a holy damage buffer, because he gives so much holy damage to your team. And you're absolutely right. He's got debuffs as well that he throws onto enemies. You can see he reduces backline enemies' armor by 20% and their damage reduction by 20%. So not only are you buffing the holy damage of your team, you're also stripping the defenses of enemies and granting shields to your allies. So Wukong is an extremely powerful hero, definitely worth taking a look at. You can see when he's under the Universe Intimidation status, he'll deal extra damage, and that's going to ignore enemies' defenses, so that's pretty fun. It's got extra all damage dealt bonuses as well, so if you're looking to use him as a damage unit, you definitely want to consider upgrading his active skill. And if he's under the Immortal Soul status, he'll additionally reduce frontline enemies' armor as well by 20% and their damage reduction by 20%. So that then means he's not just focusing backline opponents, he's doing frontliners as well when it comes to the debuffs. So all in all, Wukong, even though it's quite complicated how it all works, he's a pretty simple hero. Start him with energy, get a load of holy damage as a result, gain some shields, gain some stun, and that's going to give your team a huge edge in fights. What you'll notice about all of the support heroes we've mentioned today is all of them are either improving your survival by giving you extra defenses or controlling enemies, or buffing your output damage by improving critical strikes, your all damage dealt, or your holy damage. These are key to making your team perform as strong as possible, and if you combine all of these effects, you will deal with most opponents with grace and precision. So definitely build a team built around these support heroes with a main damage dealer, and you'll do extremely well. We'll probably go into more depth on these heroes later on, but also expect some videos coming out where we talk about the main damage dealers and exactly what order I would bring these support heroes in if you were using them. So hit that subscribe button for those videos in the future. But for now, guys, have an amazing week, good luck with your teams, and let me know which of these heroes you like the most in the comment section down below. I'll see you next time, but until then, have a good week, and happy idling.